You are nothing. You have always been nothing. The words echoed in Arya's mind as her knees buckled against the frozen ground. Snow fell in heavy sheets around her, each flake another layer of the burial shroud she knew was coming. Her fingers had stopped feeling the cold an hour ago. Maybe 2. Time had become meaningless when survival itself seemed like a cruel joke the universe insisted on playing. She had run as far as her legs could carry her, away from the packlands, away from the faces that had turned from pity to disgust in the span of a single accusation. Away from him. Especially from him. Marcus had looked at her with such contempt during the trial, as if their 3 years together had been erased in the moment Lady Vivienne whispered her poisoned lies into the council's ears. Arya tried to stand, but her body refused to obey. The river beside her rushed with deadly speed, chunks of ice crashing against the rocks with sounds like breaking bones. Perhaps she should have thrown herself into those waters hours ago. It would have been faster than this slow descent into nothing. But even now, even after everything, some stubborn part of her refused to make it easy for them. If she was going to die, it would be on her terms, not theirs. The forest was silent, except for the wind and the water. No birds sang in this frozen wasteland. No creatures moved through the snow. Even the moon seemed to hide behind the clouds, as if ashamed to witness what was happening below. Arya's breath came in shallow gasps that crystallized in the air before her face. She could feel her heartbeat slowing, the warmth draining from her core as hypothermia tightened its grip. Strange thoughts flitted through her dimming consciousness. She remembered her mother's face, soft and kind before the fever took her. She remembered running through summer meadows as a child, before she understood what being Omega meant in a world that valued strength above all else. She remembered the first time Marcus smiled at her, back when she still believed that destiny and love were the same thing. How naive she had been. How utterly, completely naive. Get up. The voice was her own, weak and pathetic. Get up, you coward. But her body had made its decision. Her eyes began to close. The cold was almost comfortable now, like sinking into a bath after a long day. They said freezing to death was peaceful at the end. They said you just fell asleep and never woke up. Maybe that was the kindness. The moon goddess had left for her. Maybe this was mercy. The sound of footsteps crunching through snow did not register at first. Her mind was too far gone, floating somewhere between consciousness and the dark. But then there was warmth, sudden and shocking, as strong arms lifted her from the ground. She tried to open her eyes, but her lids were too heavy. She tried to speak, but her lips would not move. All she could perceive was a scent, rich and overwhelming, like pine forests and thunderstorms and something else. Something that made her dying wolf stir for the first time in weeks. No one will touch you again. The voice was deep, resonant, filled with an authority that seemed to command reality itself to obey. Arya felt herself being held against a chest that radiated heat like a furnace. A cloak, thick and lined with fur, wrapped around her frozen body. Stay with me. Do you hear me, Omega? Stay with me. She wanted to tell him it was too late. She wanted to explain. That she was already gone. That there was nothing left worth saving. But then his hand touched her face, and power flooded through that connection like lightning through a wire. Her wolf, which had been silent and withdrawn since the rejection, suddenly howled within her mind. Not in pain or fear, but in recognition. Pure, undeniable recognition. Consciousness fled entirely after that. There were sensations, fragments of awareness that made no sense strung together. Movement, rapid and smooth as if she were flying. Voices, urgent and concerned, speaking words she could not parse. Heat, blessed heat, surrounding her like a cocoon. And through it all, that scent, anchoring her to life when every instinct screamed to let go. When Arya finally opened her eyes, she had no idea how much time had passed. Hours, days. The ceiling above her was not the sky, but ornately carved wood inlaid with gold. The bed beneath her was softer than anything she had ever experienced, piled high with furs and blankets that must have cost more than her entire pack's annual tribute. Candles burned in sconces along the walls, their light dancing across tapestries that depicted wolves in various forms of glory and conquest. This was not a healer's tent. This was not even a normal room. This was a chamber fit for royalty. Panic seized her chest. Arya tried to sit up, but her body protested with 1,000 aches and pains. Her fingers and toes burned with the particular agony of frostbite healing. Her throat was raw, as if she had been screaming. And she was dressed in a nightgown of silk so fine it felt like water against her skin. Someone had undressed her. Someone had bathed her. Someone had cared for her while she lay unconscious and vulnerable. The thought made her stomach twist with a complicated mixture of gratitude and shame. The door opened without warning. Arya's head snapped toward the sound, her wolf rising defensively despite her weakness. But the woman who entered was not threatening, at least not overtly. She was perhaps 40, with silver threading through her dark hair and the confident bearing of someone used to authority. She wore the deep green robes of a high healer, and her eyes swept over Arya with professional assessment. "You are awake. Good. His Majesty will be pleased." The woman moved to the bedside with practiced efficiency, reaching for Arya's wrist to check her pulse. Arya jerked away instinctively. The healer paused, then deliberately slowed her movements. "I mean you no harm, child. I am Healer Marin. You have been in my care for 3 days. 3 days. Arya's mind reeled. Where am I? Her voice came out as a croak, barely recognizable as her own. Marin poured water from a crystal pitcher into a matching cup and offered it. You are in the Northern Palace, the stronghold of King Theron. She said it as if it should mean something, as if the name alone should explain everything. Arya took the cup with shaking hands and drank. The water was cool and pure, better than anything she had tasted in months. Why? She managed after draining half the cup. Why would the king bring me here? Marin's expression was unreadable. That is a question only His Majesty can answer. But I can tell you this. In the 50 years I have served the royal family, I have never seen him carry someone into this palace with his own hands. I have never seen him sit vigil at a bedside for 3 nights without sleeping. And I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you when he commanded us to save your life at any cost. The healer's words should have brought comfort. Instead, they filled Arya with dread. She was nobody. Less than nobody. A rejected Omega with false accusations hanging over her head like a noose. Why would the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories care if she lived or died? What game was being played here? What new trap had she stumbled into? I need to leave. Arya pushed the blankets aside, ignoring how her head spun with the movement. I cannot be here. You do not understand. I cannot. Marin's hand, surprisingly strong, pressed against her shoulder. You will leave when His Majesty grants you permission to leave, and not a moment before. Right now you can barely stand. Your body temperature dropped so low you should have died. You have frostbite on 8 of your fingers and 6 of your toes. Your lungs were filled with fluid from exposure. By all rights and reason, you should be a corpse frozen in the snow. The only reason you are alive is because our king willed it so. The matter-of-fact way she said it, the absolute certainty in her voice, made argument impossible. Arya sank back against the pillows, exhausted by the brief exchange. Her mind was a chaos of questions and fears, but her body demanded rest. Marin seemed satisfied by her compliance, and resumed her examination with gentle, efficient touches. Your wolf is strong, the healer commented as she checked. Arya's pupils. Stronger than I would expect from someone in your condition. She fought very hard to keep you alive. Arya said nothing. Her wolf had been broken by the rejection. shattered by the mate bond that Marcus severed with such casual cruelty. Or so she had thought. But when the king touched her in the snow, something had changed. Something had woken up. "Rest now," Marin instructed, already moving toward the door. "I will have food sent up. You need to eat, even if you do not feel. Hunger. Your body has been through trauma, it will take time to heal." She paused at the threshold, glancing back with an expression that might have been sympathy, or might have been pity. Arya could not tell which would be worse. "One more thing, child. You are safe here. Whatever happened to you before, whatever you are running from, it cannot touch you within these walls. The king's protection is absolute." The door closed with a soft click, leaving Arya alone with her thoughts and the growing realization that she had exchanged one prison for another, even if this one had silk sheets and golden ceilings. She closed her eyes, trying to calm the racing of her heart, trying to make sense of the impossible situation she found herself in. But all she could think about was that voice in the darkness, deep and commanding, promising that no one would touch her again. All she could think about was the moment when his hand met her skin, and her wolf recognized something her conscious mind could not name. All she could think about was the terrifying possibility that she had been saved only to face something far more dangerous than death in the frozen snow. If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. The food arrived an hour later, brought by a young servant girl who looked at Arya with wide, curious eyes, but said nothing beyond a respectful greeting. The tray was laden with more food than Arya could possibly eat. Fresh bread still warm from the oven, roasted meat that smelled divine, fruits that should not exist in the depths of winter, and a pot of tea that filled the room with a soothing herbal scent. Arya's stomach growled despite her anxiety. She had not eaten properly in weeks, surviving on whatever scraps she could find or steal during her flight from her former pack. Pride warred with hunger, and hunger won. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, trying not to think about how quickly she had fallen from barely surviving to living in luxury, trying not to wonder what price would eventually be demanded for such generosity. She had just finished eating when the door opened again. This time, there was no gentle knock, no hesitation. The man who entered filled the doorway with his presence before he even fully crossed the threshold. Arya's breath caught in her throat. She had seen alphas before. Strong men, powerful men. Men who commanded respect through force of will and physical dominance. But this was something else entirely. King Theron was tall, easily over 6.5 feet, with shoulders that seemed carved from granite, and a presence that made the very air feel heavier. His hair was black as midnight, falling to his shoulders in waves that looked perpetually windswept. His face was all sharp angles and hard edges, handsome in a brutal, uncompromising way. But it was his eyes that held her captive. Silver, like moonlight on water, like polished steel, like nothing human, or even wolf. They fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to simultaneously run and stay perfectly still. "You are awake." His voice was the same one from the snow, and hearing it now in full consciousness made something in Arya's chest tighten painfully. "I am told you have been asking questions." He moved further into the room with a predator's grace, each step measured and purposeful. Arya found herself pressing back against the headboard, her wolf torn between submission and the strange, desperate need to get closer to him. "Your Majesty," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thank you for saving my life, but I do not understand why I brought you here." Theron stopped at the foot of the bed, his hands clasped behind his back in a posture that might have seemed relaxed on anyone else, but on him looked like a warrior at ease. "Tell me your name, Omega." "Arya." She forced herself to meet his eyes, even though every instinct screamed to lower her gaze in submission. "Arya Thornwood." Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. "Thornwood. From the Eastern Valleys pack. It was not a question. He knew. Of course he knew. Kings did not save random Omegas without investigating who they were. Yes, Your Majesty. Her hands twisted in the blankets. I am no longer welcome there. Because your mate rejected you. Again, not a question. The words were stated as simple fact, and somehow that made them hurt worse than any accusation. Because Marcus Blackmore, son of the Eastern Valley's Alpha, chose to believe his new lover over his destined mate. Because Lady Vivian Ashford is the daughter of a wealthy pack, and you are merely an Omega with no family, no connections, and no value beyond what your bond could provide. The clinical recitation of her humiliation should have destroyed what little remained of Arya's composure. Instead, rage flared to life in her chest, hot and unexpected. If you know all of this, then you know I am not worthy of your time or attention, Your Majesty. I am nobody. I have nothing. I should be dead in the snow. So why? She leaned forward despite her weakness, despite the impropriety of challenging a king. Why did you bring me here? The silence that followed was electric. Theron's eyes had not left hers, and she could swear she saw his wolf moving behind that silver gaze, restless and alert. When he finally spoke, his voice had dropped an octave, becoming something that vibrated through her bones. Because when I touched you, my wolf recognized you. Because your scent called to something in me that has been silent for 32 years. Because you should not exist, and yet here you are. He moved suddenly, closing the distance between them in 2 long strides. Arya gasped as he braced his hands on either side of her, caging her against the headboard without actually touching her. His scent washed over her in waves, overwhelming her. Senses, making her wolf howl with need and confusion. I do not know what you are yet, Arya Thornwood. But I know what you are not. You are not nothing. You are not worthless. And you are most definitely not going to die in my territory, while I have breath in my body to prevent it. His face was inches from hers now, close enough that she could see the flecks of darker gray in his silver eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin. Do you understand me, Omega? You are under my protection now. That means anyone who wishes you harm will have to go through me first. And I promise you, no one in this world is strong enough to do that. Arya could not speak, could not think, could barely breathe. Her entire world had narrowed to this moment, to this man, to the impossible intensity of whatever was happening between them. Her wolf was going insane, pushing against her skin, demanding she submit and resist and accept and flee all at the same time. Why? She whispered again. Because it was the only question that mattered. Theron's expression softened, just barely. Just enough to show something human beneath the king. Because you are mine. He said it simply, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. I do not know how yet. I do not know why. But from the moment I caught your scent on the wind, from the moment I saw you dying in the snow, I knew. You are mine to protect. Mine to defend. Mine to cherish, if you will allow it. He pushed away then, giving her space, giving her room to breathe. But I am not Marcus Blackmore. I will not force a bond you do not want. I will not claim you without your consent. You are free to leave when you are healed if that is your wish. But know this, Arya. If you stay, if you accept what is growing between us, I will move heaven and earth to make you happy. I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. And I will spend every day proving that you are not nothing. You are everything. The declaration hung in the air between them, impossible and overwhelming and terrifying in its sincerity. Arya's mind spun with 1,000 protests, 1,000 reasons why this could not be real, could not be happening. But her wolf, her broken, shattered wolf, was singing. For the first time since the rejection, since Marcus tore their bond apart and left her bleeding and alone, her wolf was whole. I do not understand, Arya breathed. How is this possible? Mates are chosen by the moon goddess. You cannot just, decide. The moon goddess works in mysterious ways. Theron interrupted gently. Sometimes she gives us our destined mates at first sight. Sometimes she waits until we have grown enough to deserve them. And sometimes, his eyes intensified, burning with conviction, she corrects her mistakes. Before Arya could respond, before she could process what he was implying, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Theron's expression shifted instantly from intense to annoyed. "What?" he called out, his voice carrying clear irritation at the interruption. The door opened to reveal a man in formal court attire, his face carefully neutral. "Your Majesty, Lady Seraphina requests an audience. She has been waiting in the throne room for over an hour and insists the matter is urgent." Something dangerous flashed through Theron's eyes. "Tell Lady Seraphina that I am occupied with matters of greater importance. She can wait." The courtier hesitated. "Your Majesty, she has brought her father, Lord Cornelius. They claim there are wedding arrangements that require your immediate attention." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Arya felt her stomach clench with a complicated mixture of emotions she could not name. Wedding arrangements. Of course. A king would have a queen. A man like Theron would have been promised to someone worthy, someone powerful, someone who was not a rejected Omega found freezing to death. "I see." Theron's voice had gone flat, emotionless in a way that was somehow more frightening than anger. "Inform Lord Cornelius that the wedding arrangements he speaks of are void. The betrothal contract was negotiated by my father before his death, and as I am now king, I am within my rights to dissolve any agreements that do not serve the kingdom's best interests." The courtier's eyes widened. "Your Majesty, the Ashford family will accept my decision, or they will find themselves without royal favor," Theron interrupted, coldly. "I have tolerated Seraphina's presumptions out of respect for my father's memory, but my patience has reached its end. Make it clear, Lysander. There will be no wedding. There will be no union between myself and Lady Seraphina. That chapter is closed." Lysander bowed deeply, though Arya could see shock written plainly across his features. "As you command, Your Majesty. Should I have them escorted from the palace?" "No. I will speak with them myself. Give me 10 minutes." Theron waited, until the door closed before turning back to Arya. The coldness melted away, replaced by something warmer, something almost apologetic. "I am sorry you had to hear that. Palace politics are complicated and often ugly. But I meant what I said. Every word." He moved to the door, then paused. "Rest, Arya. Heal. And when you are ready, we will talk more. I have questions for you, and I suspect you have many for me. But for now, know that you are safe. Nothing and no one will change that." Then he was gone, leaving Arya alone with a head full of impossible promises and a heart that did not know whether to hope or despair. What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below. The next days passed in a strange blur. Healer Marin visited twice daily, monitoring Arya's recovery with meticulous attention. The frostbite was healing well, though her fingers and toes still ached with phantom pains. Her strength was returning, slowly but steadily, and by the 5th day, she was able to walk around the room without feeling like her legs would give out. Servants came and went with meals, with fresh clothes, with everything she could possibly need. They were all unfailingly polite, but Arya could see the curiosity in their eyes. The mystery Omega that their king had carried into the palace was the subject of intense gossip, she was sure. She tried not to think about what they whispered in the halls. She tried not to think about the fact that Theron had dissolved his betrothal for reasons she still did not fully understand. She tried not to think about how her entire world had been upended in the span of a week. Theron visited every evening without fail, He never stayed long, never pushed for more than conversation, but his presence filled the room each time. They talked about small things at first, her life before the rejection, his responsibilities as king, the politics of the Northern Territories. He was surprisingly easy to talk to once the initial terror wore off. Intelligent, thoughtful, with a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. And always, there was that pull between them. That magnetic attraction that made her wolf purr and her human side panic. On the 7th night, Arya finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. Why did you really dissolve the betrothal? Theron was standing by the window, looking out at the snow-covered grounds. He did not turn when he answered. Because marrying Serafina would have been a political arrangement devoid of any real connection. Because I have spent my entire adult life doing what was expected of me, and I am tired of it. Because... He paused, his hands gripping the windowsill. Because meeting you made me realize what I was settling for, and I refuse to settle anymore. You barely know me, Arya protested softly. How can you make such a huge decision based on a feeling? Now he did turn, his silver eyes finding hers across the room. When you have lived as long as I have, when you have seen as much as I have, you learn to trust your instincts. My instincts tell me that you are important, that whatever brought you into my territory, whatever led me to find you at that exact moment, was not coincidence. It was fate. He crossed to her then, kneeling beside her chair so they were at eye level. I am not asking you to love me, Arya. I am not even asking you to stay forever. I am simply asking you to give this, whatever this is, a chance. Let me get to know you. Let yourself heal here, where you are safe. And if, when you are whole again, you decide to leave, I will not stop you. But at least give us the opportunity to see what we could be. His hand reached out, hovering near her face but not touching. Asking permission. Arya's heart hammered in her chest. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was insane, that she was broken and damaged and not fit for a king's attention. But her wolf. Gods, her wolf was begging her to close the distance. Slowly, giving him every chance to pull away, she leaned forward until her cheek rested against his palm. The contact was electric. She heard Theron's sharp intake of breath, felt the tremor that ran through his hand. And then, his thumb was stroking her skin, gentle and reverent, as if she were something precious instead of something discarded. You are so much stronger than you know, he murmured. I can feel it in you. Sleeping. Waiting. Whatever they told you that you were, whatever lies they fed you about your worth, it was all poison. You are magnificent, Arya. You just do not see it yet. Tears burned behind her eyes. She wanted so desperately to believe him. But the wounds Marcus left were too fresh, too deep. He said I was weak, that my wolf was defective, that I would never be worthy of the bond. Theron's expression darkened with barely contained rage. Then Marcus Blackmore is a fool who could not recognize treasure when the moon goddess herself placed it in his hands. His loss, Arya. His loss, and my gain. The conviction in his voice, the absolute certainty, cracked something inside her. The tears spilled over then, hot and fast, and Theron pulled her into his arms without hesitation. He held her while she cried, his hand stroking her hair, his deep voice murmuring soothing words she could not quite hear through her sobs. And for the first time since her world fell apart, Arya let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could survive this, that maybe she could be more than the broken thing Marcus had made her. When the tears finally subsided, Arya pulled back, embarrassed by her display of weakness. But Theron simply wiped her cheeks with his thumbs, his expression gentle. Never apologize for feeling, Arya. You have earned the right to grieve what was stolen from you." He stood then, and she felt the loss of his warmth immediately. "I should let you rest. But tomorrow, if you feel strong enough, I would like to show you something." "What?" she asked, her voice still rough from crying. Theron smiled, and it transformed his entire face from stern king to something almost boyish. "The heart of the palace, the place where the magic of our bloodline lives. I think it is time you understood exactly why my wolf recognized you, and why your presence here is about much more than simple protection." With that cryptic statement, he left, and Arya was alone with her racing thoughts and the growing, terrifying hope that perhaps her story was not over after all. The next morning, Arya dressed with more care than she had in weeks. The wardrobe in her room had been stocked with beautiful clothes, all in her size, all in colors that complemented her complexion. She chose a deep blue gown that was simpler than the others, with long sleeves and a high neckline that made her feel less exposed. When Theron arrived, his eyes swept over her with clear appreciation. "Beautiful," he said simply, offering his arm. "Come. There is much to show you." He led her through corridors she had not seen before, deeper into the palace. Servants bowed as they passed, but Arya noticed that none of them seemed surprised to see her on the king's arm. Either they had been warned or the gossip had reached everyone already. Either way, she held her head high, refusing to shrink under their curious gazes. They descended stairs that seemed to go on forever, carved from the living rock beneath the palace. Torches lit the way, their flames burning with an odd silver light that reminded Arya of Theron's eyes. The air grew warmer as they descended, humid and thick with power that made her skin prickle. Finally, they reached a massive door covered in intricate carvings of wolves in various forms of transformation. Theron placed his hand against the wood and whispered something in a language Arya did not recognize. The door swung open silently. Beyond was a cavern so vast that Arya could not see the far walls. But what stopped? Her breath was what filled the space. Water, glowing with that same silver light, formed a perfectly circular pool in the center of the cavern. The surface was mirror smooth, reflecting the stalactites above like stars in a night sky. And around the pool, carved into the rock itself, were massive wolf statues, each one unique, each one radiating ancient power. "This is the moon pool," Theron said quietly, his voice echoing in the vast space. "The source of my family's power. Only those of royal blood can enter this place without being driven mad by the magic. My ancestors built their kingdom around this spot, because the moon goddess herself blessed these waters." He led her closer, and Arya could feel the power emanating from the pool like heat from a fire. "Every king and queen in my line has come here to receive their gifts: strength, wisdom, the ability to unite the packs. But there is another gift these waters provide, one that has not manifested in generations." He turned to face her fully. "They reveal true mates. Not destined mates, not bonds of convenience, but the one soul that complements your own so perfectly that together you become something greater than either could be alone." Arya's mouth went dry. "What are you saying?" Theron took both her hands in his. "I am saying that when I brought you here, when I carried you past the threshold of this sacred place, the waters reacted. For the first time in my life, they glowed brighter. They sang with power, and my wolf, who has been restless and dissatisfied for years, despite Lady Seraphina's presence, finally found peace." He brought her hands to his chest, pressing them over his heart. "I am saying that you are not just any Omega, Arya. You are my true mate. The moon goddess did not make a mistake with Marcus. She was preparing you for something greater. For me. For us. For the destiny we are meant to fulfill together." The words were too big, too impossible. Arya tried to pull away, but Theron held. Firm. "No, I cannot be. I am nobody. I have no power, no lineage, no— Look at the water, Arya. Theron's voice was gentle but commanding. Look and tell me I am wrong. Against her better judgment, Arya turned her gaze to the moon pool. The surface was no longer calm. It rippled and swirled, the silver light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. And as she watched, images began to form in the water. A white wolf, massive and regal, with eyes like blue stars. The same wolf appeared again and again throughout history, sometimes in the background of great battles, sometimes standing beside kings and queens, always watching, always waiting. And then she saw herself, not as she was now, broken and uncertain, but as something else entirely. Her hair was longer, flowing white instead of brown. Her eyes glowed with that same blue light. And beside her stood a black wolf with silver eyes, the two of them together radiating power that made the very earth tremble. "What is this?" Arya whispered, unable to look away from the vision. "What am I seeing?" "Your true nature," Theron answered. "The bloodline you carry without even knowing it. Arya, you are not just an Omega. You are the last living descendant of the Lunar Guardians, an ancient line of wolves blessed directly by the Moon Goddess to serve as her voice on Earth. Your family was hunted to extinction 3 centuries ago because other packs feared their power. But somehow, impossibly, the bloodline survived. It survived. In you." The cavern spun around her. Arya felt her knees give out, but Theron caught her, holding her steady against his chest. "Breathe, love. Just breathe. I know it is overwhelming, but it explains everything. Why your wolf never fully manifested. Why Marcus's rejection did not kill you as it should have. Why I found you at that exact moment when your life hung by a thread. The Moon Goddess was guiding us to each other. I do not have any power," Arya protested weakly. "I have never been able to shift properly. I have never— because your wolf was dormant, waiting for the right catalyst to awaken her." Theron's hand cupped her face, tilting it up to meet his eyes. "Waiting for your true mate. Waiting for this moment." He glanced at the moon pool. "The waters can complete your awakening if you are willing. But I will not force you, Arya. This is your choice. You can walk away right now, live as a normal wolf, and I will still protect you. Or you can step into your destiny and become what you were always meant to be." The choice should have been impossible. But as Arya looked into Theron's silver eyes, as she felt the pull of the moon pool's power calling to something deep within her soul, she realized there was no choice at all. There was only the path forward. The path to becoming whole. If you want to see how this story ends, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. "I am afraid," she admitted. Theron smiled, fierce and proud. "Good. Fear means you understand the magnitude of what you are about to do. But I will be with you every step of the way. You are not alone in this, Arya. You will never be alone again." He extended his hand toward the pool. "Are you ready?" Arya took a deep breath, feeling her wolf stir within her for the first time with something that felt like excitement rather than pain. "Yes, I am ready." Together, they walked to the edge of the moon pool. The silver water seemed to reach for them, tendrils of light extending across the surface like welcoming arms. Theron squeezed her hand once, then released it. "You must enter alone. The waters will not harm you, but they will test you. They will show you truths about yourself that you may not want to see. They will demand that you face every fear, every insecurity, every doubt that has ever lived in your heart. And if you survive that trial, if you emerge on the other side, you will be reborn as your true self." Arya nodded, not trusting her voice. She removed her shoes, feeling the stone cool beneath her feet. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she stepped into the pool. The water was neither hot nor cold, but something else entirely. It felt alive, sentient, as if it recognized her at a molecular level. It climbed her legs like gentle hands, soaking through her dress, wrapping around her torso. Arya walked deeper, the water rising to her waist, then her chest, then her shoulders. She had to tilt her head back to keep her face above the surface. And then the visions began. She saw her childhood, the moment her mother died and left her alone. She felt the pain of that loss all over again, fresh and raw. She saw the years of being treated as lesser, as weak, as unworthy. She saw Marcus's face the day he rejected her, the contempt in his eyes. Every hurt, every humiliation, every moment of self-doubt crashed over her like waves trying to drown her. But something inside Arya refused to go under. A voice, ancient and powerful, spoke within her mind. You are more than what they made you believe. You are more than the sum of your pain. You are my daughter, chosen and blessed. Rise, Arya Thornwood. Rise and claim your birthright. Light exploded behind her eyes. Arya gasped, her head slipping beneath the water. But instead of drowning, she felt herself changing. Her bones shifted, her muscles reformed, power flooding through her veins like liquid fire. Her wolf, silent and broken for so long, finally emerged in full glory. Not with pain or struggle, but with the ease of coming home. When Arya surfaced, gasping and shaking, she was no longer the same woman who had entered the pool. Her hair had turned pure white, flowing down her back in waves that seemed to capture moonlight itself. Her eyes, when she opened them, glowed with blue fire, and she could feel her wolf, strong and whole and magnificent, prowling just beneath her skin. Theron stood at the edge of the pool, his expression awestruck. Arya, he breathed. By the goddess, you are radiant. She walked toward him through the water, each step more confident than the last. When she emerged from the pool, her dress clinging to her body, power crackling around her like static electricity, Theron dropped to one knee. My queen, he said reverently. My true mate. My equal in all things. Arya felt tears streaming down her face, but they were not tears of pain. They were tears of relief, of joy, of finally understanding who she was meant to be. She cupped Theron's face, urging him to stand. I am not your queen yet, she whispered, but I could be, if you truly want me, if this is real. In answer, Theron pulled her into his arms and kissed her. The moment their lips met, the mate bond snapped into place with the force of a thunderclap. Arya cried out against his mouth as power flooded the connection, binding them together in a way that made Marcus's bond feel like a pale imitation. This was real. This was right. This was destiny. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Theron rested his forehead against hers. You are mine, he growled, his voice rough with emotion and barely restrained need. And I am yours, forever. In this life, and every life after. Forever, Arya agreed, and for the first time since her world fell apart, she truly believed in happy endings. The next weeks were a whirlwind. Arya's transformation was the talk of the entire kingdom. The lost lunar guardian bloodline had been found, and she stood at the side of the most powerful alpha in the north. Theron wasted no time in making their bond official. A ceremony was planned. Not just a mating, but a true royal wedding that would unite their lines and their powers. Arya learned to control her newfound abilities with the help of ancient texts and Theron's guidance. She could heal with a touch, could call upon the moon's power to strengthen or protect those around her. Her wolf was massive, rivaling even Theron's in size, with fur as white as fresh snow and eyes that glowed like blue stars. Together, they were formidable. But not everyone was pleased with this turn of events. Lady Seraphina and her father, Lord Cornelius, were predictably furious about the dissolved betrothal. They had invested years in securing the match, had counted on the prestige and power that came with being the royal family. Serafina, in particular, seemed unable to accept that she had been replaced. She appeared at court functions with barely concealed hatred in her eyes, her smiles sharp as knives. Arya tried to be gracious, tried to understand that the other woman's pride had been wounded. But it was difficult when every interaction felt like a battle. 3 days before the wedding, things came to a head. Arya was walking through the palace gardens, enjoying a rare moment of solitude, when Serafina stepped out from behind a hedge. "So the little Omega thinks she can just waltz in and steal what is mine," Serafina said without preamble, her voice dripping with venom. "Do you have any idea what you have done? What you have ruined?" Arya stopped, keeping her expression neutral despite the way her wolf growled protectively. "I have stolen nothing, Lady Serafina. King Theron made his own choice. A choice you manipulated him into." Serafina moved closer, her eyes flashing gold as her wolf rose to the surface. "Do you think I do not see what you are? Some pathetic reject who used her sad story to prey on his protective instincts. You are nothing special, no matter what lies he tells you about ancient bloodlines." Arya felt her own wolf pushing forward, felt the power rising in her chest. But she forced it down, forced herself to remain calm. "I am sorry you are hurt, but insulting me will not change the reality of the situation. Theron and I are true mates. That bond cannot be broken or ignored." "True mates." Serafina laughed, the sound harsh and ugly. "You have convinced yourself of that fantasy because it is easier than admitting you are just a convenient replacement. But mark my words, Omega. This will not last. Eventually, he will see you for what you really are. Weak, damaged, unworthy. And when that day comes, I will be waiting to reclaim what should have always been mine." Before Arya could respond, a low growl rumbled through the garden. Both women turned to see Theron emerging from another path, his expression thunderous. "Lady Serafina." His voice could have frozen fire. "I believe I made myself clear when I dissolved our betrothal. But apparently, I need to be even more explicit." He moved to stand beside Arya, his hand possessively gripping her waist. "Arya is not a replacement. She is not second choice. She is my true mate, chosen by the moon goddess herself and confirmed by the sacred waters. She is about to become my queen and my wife. And if I hear one more word of disrespect toward her from your lips, I will banish your entire family from my territories. Am I understood?" Serafina's face had gone pale, then red with humiliation. "Your Majesty, Am I understood?" Theron repeated, his wolf evident in his eyes now. Serafina's gaze dropped in submission. "Yes, Your Majesty, you are understood." "Good, now leave. And do not approach Arya again, unless you can show her the respect she deserves as your future queen." Serafina fled, her dignity in tatters. Once she was gone, Theron turned to Arya with concern etched on his features. "Are you all right? Did she hurt you?" Arya shook her head, still processing what had just happened. "No. She said some things." "What things?" Theron's voice had gone dangerously soft. Arya hesitated, then decided honesty was best. "She said I was weak, damaged, that eventually you would see the truth and cast me aside." She forced a smile. Nothing I have not heard before. Theron's expression was pained. He pulled her fully into his arms, burying his face in her hair. "Listen to me, Arya. Listen carefully. You are the strongest person I have ever met. The fact that you survived everything you went through, that you still have the capacity to be kind and open despite the cruelty shown to you, proves your strength more than any amount of physical power ever could." He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "And as for damaged, we are all damaged in some way. Life leaves scars on everyone, but those scars do not diminish your worth. They prove you are a survivor. They prove you are Unbreakable. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I will spend the rest of my life showing you what I see when I look at you. Beauty, grace, power beyond measure, and a heart so pure it humbles me. You are my everything, Arya. Never doubt that. The tears came then, but they were good tears. Healing tears. Arya pressed her face against Theron's chest and let him hold her while she cried out the last remnants of the poison Marcus and Seraphina had tried to plant in her heart. And when she finally looked up, she felt lighter than she had in years. I love you, she whispered. It was the first time she had said it out loud. Theron's entire face transformed with joy. I love you too. More than words can express, more than time can measure. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and full of promise. 3 more days, and you will be mine in every way. 3 more days, and the entire world will know you are my queen. I am already yours, Arya murmured against his lips. I think since the moment you found me in the snow. The wedding was spectacular. The entire kingdom gathered to witness the union of their king and his lunar guardian queen. Arya wore a gown of white and silver that seemed to be made of moonlight itself, her hair flowing free down her back. Theron stood at the altar in formal ceremonial armor, his eyes never leaving hers as she walked down the aisle. When they spoke their vows, when they completed the mating bite that would bind them for life, the very air around them glowed with power. The moon goddess was blessing their union, and everyone present could feel it. The celebration afterward lasted 3 days. Packs from across the territories came to pay their respects and pledge their loyalty. Even the Eastern Valleys pack sent a delegation, though Marcus himself did not attend. Arya found she did not care. That chapter of her life was closed. She had found her true home, her true mate, her true self. On the 3rd night, as the festivities finally wound down, Theron carried Arya to their chambers. Not because she could not walk, but because he wanted to. Because carrying her made him feel like the luckiest man alive. Are you happy? He asked, as he set her gently on their bed, the same bed where she had first woken after he saved her life. Arya pulled him down beside her, her hand over his heart, feeling the steady beat that matched her own. I am more than happy. I am whole. For the first time in my life, I am exactly where I am supposed to be. Theron kissed her forehead, then her eyelids, then her lips. As am I, my love. As am I. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who loves epic romance. Tell me in the comments, did you see this ending coming? 6 months later, Arya stood on the balcony of the palace, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Her hand rested on her still flat stomach, where new life was beginning to grow. A child. Theirs. The joining of the royal line and the lunar guardian. Bloodline. She felt Theron's arms wrap around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Good morning, my queen. Good morning, my king. She covered his hands with hers, guiding them to her stomach. I have news. She felt him go still, then heard his sharp intake of breath as understanding dawned. Are you certain? Healer Marin confirmed it this morning. We are going to have a baby. Theron turned her in his arms, his face alight with joy so pure it took her breath away. A baby. Our child. Arya, you have given me everything. My mate, my queen, and now this. I do not deserve you. You deserve all of it and more, Arya corrected softly. You saved me, Theron. In every way a person can be saved. He kissed her then, long and deep and full of love. When they finally broke apart, the sun had fully risen, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day. A new beginning. The rejected Omega who had been found freezing by a river was gone. In her place stood Queen Arya, lunar guardian, true mate to the king, and soon-to-be mother. She had been broken, yes, but in the breaking, she had found her strength. And in that strength, she had found her destiny. As Theron led her back inside, his hand never leaving hers, Arya sent a silent prayer of gratitude to the moon goddess. "Thank you for the pain," she thought. "Because without it, I never would have found him. I never would have found myself. Thank you for the journey that led me here. To love, to power, to home." And somewhere in the heavens, the moon goddess smiled, well pleased with the children she had guided through darkness into light.